Hi everyone. So Real Talk with Claudia Mostaghasi is episode number 2. And I have so I've been in business since 2007. I think I have worked with Chris for a long
A
time.
long time.
Yeah.
It's
So
been
Chris
years.
Adame is here with us. He's my uh, prefer or one of the appraisals on my list, and I've worked with him for a long time. He has helped me with lunch and learns and just educate and inform, realtors and people out there that are looking to buying a house. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you
Oh.
for asking me to be here.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it's very important. I think that there's a lot of things that have been starting to change. So just to jump into it, because I
Sure.
know it will be more
Sure.
than 30 minutes. I get very passionate talking about appraisals, but I think like one of the biggest questions that normally realtors ask, and maybe you can help us direct them or give them the resources or where can they find these answers, is when they're listing a property.
Mhm.
And then they list a property, and average families here in Corpus, they normally qualify more for they qualify more for FHA loans than
Right.
conventional.
Right.
But then the realtors kind of like have these like fear almost, like, oh, it's not gonna pass FHA.
Right.
And most of the times it would.
Right.
But so how it's like maybe like an easy and good way for a realtor to make that decision whether they can put the house as an FHA or just conventional.
There's certain things. I dealt with one not too long ago where the agent was like, "There's no way it's going to go FHA," and you're like, "There's nothing wrong with this house." And I guess it's from back in the day. There were a lot more things that kind of kept houses from being or qualifying for FHA. There's a lot of webinars out there. It's down right now, so I'm taking my continuing education. But there's like McKissick is a online learning center, and they offer webinars that you can just kind of check in. And one is going to be an updating of the specifics of just what FHA looks at for home. What are the mandatory things, and peeling paint. If a property if someone's not wanting to do any improvements, and you walk around, you see peeling paint, rotted wood, staircases that don't have railings, things like that, then it probably won't go FHA if you know that seller's definitely not going to make any improvement, because there's going to be something.
But isn't it true too? Like because I've seen on some appraisals conventional that like rotting wood, like you still have to fix it. There's some stuff that you still have to that conventional is going to call for.
But that wouldn't be. We're not calling for that. So and on a conventional deal, I'll say, okay, just to let you guys know, this house has rotted wood. It's got a bunch of peeling paint. I'm just showing you the condition of it, and then I'm making an adjustment in that report that this house is worth X less probably a cost to cure to fix all that stuff.
Now, here's the thing with that though, because by you, and I think we have had this situation before, like when an appraiser actually mentions that on the appraisal, then the underwriter is like, oh, we need to fix that.
Right.
Like, I don't like that he put that.
Right.
And then it's just kind of like a back and forth, like, okay, well, what do we do? Do we, like, because you're not going to remove it. And then the underwriter is not going to feel like, okay, wait. I had one recently. It was like it was an investment property. And it was a small, like 60,000, like those that that you're going to have to do a lot of repairs. Right. And basically, I get the appraisal back as is with a laundry list of everything that was falling off on the house.
Right.
So then the underwriter was like, oh no, like that has to get fixed.
Well, that would be an underwriter issue where I don't,
right.
The only time we really have to put it in is I had one, the house was nothing wrong with the house, but there was an attached storage carport area. And, a lot of deferred maintenance on it. And I said, okay, so I had to make an adjustment because I couldn't find any sales that were just like hey, the house has been updated, but either the garage is in bad condition or whatever else like that. But I put in there, these items, this report's not prepared based on the completion of these items.
Okay. So when you say you made adjustments, that lowers the pricing on the house?
It lowers the price on the sale. So I say, okay, here's let's a perfect easy example is, let's say you have two homes, one doesn't have AC and one does have a central heating there. $5,000, $7,500 is what I adjust that, and it's kind of the same thing. I'm just saying that this house doesn't have the deferred maintenance that's probably around $3,000 to fix. So you have to make some sort of an adjustment to that sale to get to your value. But that you're just saying that sale is worth $3,000 more because it's probably going to cost something on this house to do it,
right? So I've seen, like I said, I've seen. I think my understanding of like the appraisal is that FHA cares a lot about the safety.
Correct.
Of the
safety,
home.
Security, and soundness. Safety used to be, they would classify it no carpeting. Okay, that's a safety issue. Or there's big holes in the carpet or trip hazards they really focused on. Some of that stuff's been eliminated, but you still have to watch. I mean, if there's a transition, let's just say from your kitchen to your dining, and it's significant, it's kind of awkward, that may be a safety deal. But the main thing I see is the security and soundness. So like, okay, peeling paint, bare wood, things to the structure that allows that structure to deteriorate faster than normal. Because, and I see it all the time, just painted over rotted wood. That's not
that's not gonna fix the problem.
But you can see as a appraiser, like, wait a minute, I can tell they just painted over a whole thing. But that's the main thing I see than anything else is rotted wood, peeling paint, lots of bare wood, and then you have to have a heating source in your home.
Yes, so you don't have to have the AC, but you have to have a heating.
Correct.
And it cannot be like a space heater.
Yeah, you can't plug in a heater. It has to be and somewhat permanently attached. And I see that a lot. People just throw in a window unit, and I'm like, it has to be. It can be a window unit, but it has to be attached. And that unit has to be attached to the structure somehow through brackets or whatever.
Oh, okay. So then that's actually, I've been asked that before, and I didn't think that it could be a window unit.
Yes, it can be a window unit.
Attached.
As long as it's attached, built in, attached, not just set in with the window closed. But most window units don't have a heating capability. So a lot of people will just put one in there, and I'm like, no, it has to be capable of heating the entire unit.
How about appliances?
That is one that you can look up and you'll get a different answer
every time.
So the way that they really go about it is it really needs to have an oven range, but it doesn't read like that. So is it habitable without an oven range? You start getting into semantics, but the way you kind of want to adjust. So you say, all right, I'm going to adjust because it doesn't have an oven range. But it's typically all appliances present in the home must be operational. That's so it's better it's pretty much like if you have a dishwasher, it's not working, just take it out instead of leaving it there and it's not working, because then you're going to call for it. That's correct. But at the same time, you can be interpreted by, well, there's a space for a dishwasher. Why is there not a dishwasher in there? So it is really a gray area in the way that I've come down to understand everything, and basically what I read is, all appliances there have to be operational. And if there's no dishwasher, there's no dishwasher. Does the market expect a dishwasher in a $300,000 home? Yes. Well, then I need to adjust that it doesn't have a dishwasher. But in a $110,000 home, it's not something that's really there.
Okay.
Yeah, and that includes the water heater. Water heater is a big deal.
Well, the water heater, and then it has to be elevated and all that stuff. Yeah. I recently, we got an appraisal, and it was crazy. So the appraiser actually took pictures of the water heater, and you literally can see the rats like this big. And I was like, oh no, I was like, why did they take that picture? I feel like the rat was even smiling and everything on the picture. So what tips will you give? I know this is another question that comes a lot. So sometimes when I get clients to come in and they're like, oh, I want to sell my house, but first I'm going to change the floor and paint and do all these renovations and redo the kitchen and everything. And I'm like, okay, Like you're gonna spend $10,000, that doesn't mean that he's gonna give you a $10,000 value.
Right.
More, or like it's gonna
Right.
increase your value by $10,000. So, what are like maybe 2-3 things that you would recommend sellers and realtors that actually make a big impact on gaining more value?
Right. I think that I see the most
Mhm.
like I will say the last 2 years I wouldn't advise people to do that. I think as things start to come down, maybe you can put a little bit more in your house and get a little bit more bang because things just aren't absolutely crazy. But I would look at paint, painting. Walls, your cabinets. You don't necessarily have to reface your cabinets. Just painting them and getting a good quality paint on them rather than just where you can see it all over. Those little things, painting the cabinets in the bathrooms. Maybe replacing, you don't have to go tile, just a nice fiberglass tub, shower unit. They make some out there right now that look really good and are very economical.
Right.
That's the stuff I see that kind of those homes, and those are really the harder homes to appraise, the ones that haven't been redone, but have been updated, but are above everything else, because there hasn't been historically a lot of that. The investors come in
and just take them and
flip
right.
them, so they're like, well, it doesn't have granite, it doesn't have tile, but it's super clean, new flooring, and paint, and it's trading pretty high up there. So those are the ones you just don't see a lot of it because people go all in or not.
And then so, and we were talking before we started the podcast about the whole, I mean, I'm telling you, it's like a whole thing right now. Everybody's like, oh, I want to not buy a house. I want to wait until prices come down. And I was telling you, and it was very interesting when you told me about the 12-month historical what's happening. And you just said it right now. I mean, 2 years ago, everybody was going and buying houses and paying extra. And I mean, I had one lady that was like, I'll pay $25,000. I'm like, the house is not worth those $25,000, right. But she wanted the house, and there was like literally like 10 offers. And so what I was sharing with Chris was basically all the prices on the homes went way up. Because that $25,000, was that affecting the market? Like if people were paying extra for over the value?
Definitely.
Yeah. So an appraisal, tell me first, let me stop there. Like how do you appraise a property?
Well, we go out, we measure the home, look at it, and take into, its age, its condition, its quality. Sometimes age isn't a factor if it's been completely updated or remodeled. And then, we search for usually the most recent sales that are similar in size and location.
Recent? How close to?
The lender's like, 30 to 90 days, which hasn't been a problem, but now it's starting to become a problem. Especially for specific type properties. There's just not as many sales as there has been over the past 30 days. So we, usually the way I do it is I get my comparable ones, the set, and then I sort them by closing date, and I just start looking, going from the most recent back, and then I look at them different from there too.
And how close to the property?
You want to, obviously as close as possible, and if you can't, there's neighborhoods in Corpus to where I can't. Even though this comp's across the street, I know that this area is more comparable to this area, this area, this area, so we stick to it. So location is probably, in Corpus specifically, the mile radius, very rarely do I ever have an appraisal where everything's within a mile.
Okay. Because you can't do that.
It's just different.
So, but to make a point on what you just stated right now, so the sales, and that's the reason why property values went skyrocket in 2020, 2021, where, I mean, we saw people with like $100,000 on equity, like literally within the year.
Oh, yeah.
But that was because of how the sales were happening. You have a lot of demand because there was a lot of buyers. Rates were very low. There's a lot of buyers. And then that demand pretty much pushed the prices up.
Correct.
So then now people say, oh, well, I want to wait to houses prices to come down. Well, here's the thing, like, really, are they really coming down, or they're just kind of like normalizing to where they were, that they're not like super high up?
I think they're normalizing we don't have enough supply in the market to really cause prices to go down. So it's a dynamic where it's not really a supply demand economics right now. It's everything's based on interest rates right now.
Right.
So prices are going to come down. They're stabilized right now. They may come down a little bit, but as soon as interest rates start coming down,
they're going to.
So that's where I'm leery about I don't know how the Fed is going to control inflation in the housing market, because there's no supply in a lot of markets that you're reading right now. Corpus is one of them. I mean, I think the average is 4.5, 5 months, still 4 months, tight in the lower stuff. But the prices are going to start going right back up as interest rates come down, because everybody's going to be like, okay, I'm ready to go get my house. And people are like, well, so I'm very interested to see what's going to happen. I anticipate it could probably get pretty crazy again.
And the reality of the matter is, like, and I know we keep repeating, and everybody keeps repeating the same thing, like, marry the house, date the rate. I mean, because that's exactly what's going to happen. I mean, and you're seeing it right now. So 2020, 2021, you are not seeing concessions.
Correct.
I mean, and what are concessions? The sellers pay closing costs for the buyer. You weren't seeing any help. You weren't seeing sellers saying, okay, I'll sell it for lower, or I'll accept a lower offer. Like, everything was like actually above. And then I think it's turning, it already turned. Like, I mean, 2023, 2022 turned. When rates are higher, people that are actually buying now, the sellers are getting scared. Yes. Like, oh my God, I'm going to have the house in the market for 5 months. Like, maybe I can just take this one and I'll pay closing costs and I'll do this. So it's kind of like, somebody said it's not a buyer's market, but I really think that right now it is, even though the fact that rates are a little bit higher. I mean, how long have you been doing this for?
Right. I mean, rates I think they were 6.31 the other day. It came out something, but I mean, that's
not bad, right?
I was helping my parents get some stuff together. They don't live in town anymore. I was going to take it to them, and I found their original note. I think it was like 18.5% or something on one of them. I'm just like, God, I hope it never gets that way again. But I agree. I think it's a buyer's market. The problem with sellers is they just can't afford to go anywhere else. Like, I just can't. I need that extra 30,000 or whatever it is in my house, especially with everything's going on. So.
And I think that's the hardest part right now for the sellers that are actually, and that's why the demand is not, the supply is low, because even if you can't buy what you're paying right now, and then you will have to pay way more because of the rate. But again, the rate is temporary. I mean, I started in 2007, and I remember everybody would tell me like, "Oh, you're crazy," because that was like when the market crashed. And I remember this old lady that I did a loan for her, and at the time rates were like 8.5. Like, I closed loans at 8.5, and I remember that I was able to lock this old lady at 7.875.
Oh wow!
And she brought me cookies. She was so happy. She was like, "Oh my God, you got me on the 7th," and I'm like, 7.875 is like literally 8%. I mean, like, it's not much different, but she was completely like over the moon of being on the 7th and not on the 8th. So I kind of like, I'm less sensitive to also what they say, like, oh, rates are super high. And I'm like, well, are they?
I mean, like, historically they're not compared. It was an interest rate influence frenzy, and and that's the one thing about the housing market. And there are other markets like this that it's not necessarily supply demand. I mean, the interest rates can affect the market so much that it's just kind of something that it's not like we don't have a bunch of people that want to buy a house right now, and there's no sales, but it's not like there's no demand. They're just waiting.
But so you've been doing this for a while. It's not like you're gonna go and find another job.
No. I know. Excuse me. I knew. A year and a half ago, I was like, "This is gonna stop.
Bust,
it's gonna bust." And it's different this time, Chris. It's different. And I'm like, I've heard that ever since I got out of college, and it was it was 95, and the market was horrible, and it picked up real quick. And I've heard it through the .com. I heard it in 2008. When things are that crazy, it will go down. It has to correct itself.
But it's almost like a vacation time for
it
us.
is.
Like,
It
I mean,
is.
I feel like all of 2020, 21, it was so transactional. I mean, like, literally, you had the luxury to, I mean, I'm sure that it happened to you, like, oh, I don't want to do that appraisal.
Yeah.
Like, I already have enough. And, you know, same thing with us. Like, I would be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to roll that call because, like, I don't have capacity anymore. I mean, you know, I remember refinances were taking 4 months to close. Like when, you know, when all that happened. And I feel like that's gonna come back again because, I mean, you have all these people that actually bought houses at 7-6%. I mean, as soon as they hit 5-4%, because I mean, as a matter of fact, we're at 5. Like literally right now with 1% origination, you're like at 5.875.
Right.
So as soon as they hit like 4, everybody's gonna want to refinance. So now, are you doing, I did a video actually about the type of appraisals that we do. So we have the normal appraisal, which is when you go, you measure.
Right.
Do you measure all the properties?
Yes.
Okay. So you have to measure all the properties. You don't go by what the appraisal district has or?
Never.
No. Okay.
And they're just generally because it's very rarely will the appraisal district be within even 5% of what. The only time that is if builder plans were submitted.
And you can actually see
and it's been a couple of years, but then it's like they'll go try to remeasure and you'll see that house square footage change and it doesn't make any.
Because what I have seen with that measurement is most of the time the appraisal district has a higher number than what it really measures. And then you get like into like the whole drama of like the seller thinking the house is like this big and then it wasn't.
That's one of our biggest issues with appraisals is it's they measure out smaller, or the appraisal district includes an area. I had one the other day. The area between the house and the garage was built out, AC'd and everything, but you have to go outside to get to it. They have that included as main area.
Oh, and you can't do it.
Things like that. I also see the reverse in like Lamar Park, Pope Place, some of those areas where people have added on and the appraisal district never captured that add-on.
Oh.
And that can, I can see some upset sellers. Well, we've had properties appraised, and this was before the craziness, $45,000, $50,000 more because the appraisal district didn't have that add-on that they had done.
Oh, wow.
And
well, but that means that they didn't ask for a permit or anything, or what?
Or they didn't catch it, or
people
whatever.
Go and get a permit to the appraisal district and to have your house.
But people are like, well, if I didn't, then my taxes are lower. But you're gonna pay for it sooner or later. Yeah.
So we do that one. You go out, you take pictures. What are some things that you would recommend? Like, for example, I mean, the most obvious that I can think of is like clean your house. Like, when you go, because you make an appointment to go and look at the house.
You make an appointment. All the utilities need to be on. And if someone's living there, all that stuff, we've, through the years, how to look through issues. I've seen enough houses in different conditions to where I know, if there's boxes or, people are kind of more or less hoarders. You can see through it and you know what it is. But, for FHA type stuff, it's access to window. That's a big thing for FHA.
So access to window.
Can I get to the windows? Can I get to the attic? Can I get, to the different areas of the house I really need to be able to get to.
And he's going to take pictures. And I'm telling you, I've seen some pictures that is just like, did they ever do their bed? Do they like do this? See like all the clothes on the, I mean, like,
Well, that's what I get asked that question all the time. Who's going to see these pictures?
Yeah.
I go, well, only the your lender, their lender is going to see it, or your lender if you're refinancing. But yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh. So,
but you knew I was gonna come.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah. It wasn't like I called you this morning.
It's not like I showed up and like knocked on the door. Like you knew I was coming. So then the other appraisal type that we're doing, and it's weird because it's normally just whenever somebody's putting. It's only with conventional, and when somebody's putting like over like 20% or more, then we get a property appraisal waiver. Okay. Where we don't have to do an appraisal. Right. I guess you put you enter the address, and I guess something that they do that they compare. I don't know how technically, I don't know how they come up with that, but not all of them, but some of them. And then we talked about the third case, and I don't know if you do that one, which is the desktop review appraisal. Or
well, they have desktop appraisals, which is basically you drive by the property. It's a drive-by
Okay.
You don't go in, we don't measure, we use county records or MLS, whatever's data out there about that property we use to form an appraisal. And then there are reviews, which is you take an appraisal and you review it based, so a lender will send you, hey, can you review this appraisal and then tell us any violations that they may have made, or if you agree with the value. And it's not you don't review it based on technique, I should say. It's not like, oh, they didn't do this. It's mostly based on did they follow USPAP and the preparation and everything.
So you're just reviewing that they did
that they did what's required by USPAP and anything that the lender may have required.
And the other one that you said that you just go and drive by and you don't go in, that's I'm guessing that's conventional too.
Yes.
Only.
Yes.
Like, so it's only FHA and BA is gonna require you to go in the property and
and then most
cash out too. And cash out as well. What's the craziest thing that you have seen in doing an appraisal?
I mean, I've seen lots. We were talking about before we started that just Corpus, one of the only markets where you can go from 60,000 in the same day to 2.1 million. In Port A. I mean, just craziest thing. I mean, I've seen some pretty crazy things. Probably the condition, the thing that affects me the most, I don't get, is you go into a house, with the expectations of one thing and you get in and it's completely just, whoa. I mean, this is, so I think that's probably, and I can't think of one off the top of my head or really want to talk about which one.
Have you ever run into like a monkey or like a weird wild animal at a house?
No, I've run into homeless people, before.
And living in the house,
well,
like,
on vacant houses to where they've
Oh.
broken in, or you could tell that they just
I wasn't
left.
I wasn't calling homeless people monkeys,
I know
Chris.
you weren't, I know you weren't. But that was the most, that is something that we do. One of the individuals that works for me, I go with her on a lot just because I'm like, hey, you never know in certain areas if a property's been vacant like that. But yeah, well, I've been spooked a couple times, walking in, or they've tried to hide in the closet or something.
Oh, wow. So do you carry a weapon with you?
I don't.
For those kids? No.
Just liability wise,
You're like, no.
I don't know which liability to save my life or liability in case something happens. I don't know which one's worse, but no, I don't. I usually I do the outside first, and when I'm doing those that I may think something, I'm kind of like looking in, and announcing pretty.
And you go
loudly.
By yourself? Mm-hmm. You go by yourself. I don't know what. Have you dealt with squatters? I don't know what squatters is.
No, we've dealt with squatters. We manage.
First of all, what is a squatters?
Squatters is someone who's just staying in that property
without. Oh, that they took over the property.
Basically, they're hey, we're living here. There's nothing you can do about it, type deal.
And that's really hard because Texas has very harsh rules about homestead and all that stuff.
Yes, that's in the rental side because I run our property management side of the business, and managing apartments is very, very difficult. Especially when we do we do mostly commercial, and you can't lock people out. There's a whole process you have to go through, and it's quite discouraging, especially during COVID, dealing with tenants that don't pay, and then helping those owners understand that there's nothing you can do.
I had that happen to me, and it was like insane. So this lady, and I did it wrong. Like, she was undocumented, and then I tried to do one of those like I'm gonna be nice and single mom, and let me help her. So I did like for sale by owner type of thing. Well, then this lady, like, literally she got into an accident at the house, and then she wanted to sue me because it was my house, and I'm like, but it's not my house, it's your house. Like, like, I'm not, like, I have nothing to do with that. Well, due to the accident, she couldn't work. And I'm like, okay, so she wasn't paying. So I'm like, okay, well, can I foreclose? 2 years. Yeah. And then she filed for bankruptcy. And I'm like, okay. I was like, I remember seeing at the bankruptcy court, and the judge is there. And I'm like, okay, I'm very confused because she does not have papers. So why are we talking about her job if she's not legally supposed to be working here? Like, I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. Like, I was 2 years it took me to actually take her out. So she lived on the property for 2 years for free. And then of course I never actually crazy that you're saying like the condition of the property. I never went into the house again.
Oh, really?
Like I was like, no, we like sold it as an investment, like 2-3K.
Right.
Like I was like, just let it go. Like I'm done with this property. But yeah, I mean the rules for homestead here in Texas are like super harsh. Yeah.
And speaking, we had that same thing where you'd go try to get these people out of these units, or you'd be, hey, I need to get the rent. I need to get some communication from you. And there'd be a brand new TV box, 60-inch TV box. And I'm like, oh,
and the
my
brand
God.
new car. And like they're doing the line for the new iPhone. And no, it's totally. So tell me more about, so you have commercial property. Yeah, how's that compared to residential? Have you seen also like a slowdown on like rents or like going up?
During the crazy, we really only started focusing on residential when everything was crazy, because it's just
you didn't have time for more.
On the property management side, I mean, we're seeing, we manage office buildings, retail centers, a lot of office rates in Corpus, they go up a little bit, but they've been pretty flat for 25, 30 years. So it's a tough market. You got to buy the property right. But there's some, we manage a couple boutique type office properties that are highly desirable, very, very, very nice properties to where they get a premium, obviously. But the commercial market, it's kind of, there's some people worried about what's going to happen, because the rate structure on a lot of those loans aren't the same. It's not like you're locked in for 30.
It's not 30 years. No.
And there's points where where you have a balloon or you have a call or whatever, and some of that stuff,
a lot of people got in trouble with that too.
And on a big property, that can really impact that
very fast.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as some of these loans start coming to that point over the next.
Have you seen an increase on rentals, like on rental pricing?
On
commercial property?
That not as much.
No.
But like I said, it's all tailored. It depends on the property type. Like there's a good amount of tenants in this property that are willing to pay more for a very nice
property,
building.
Right?
And they're probably willing to pay a lot more than market rent for that property, because there's just not a lot of it out there, and they have a specific, their clientele demands it, they demand it, and everything else.
Right. Well, I appreciate you coming. I think that this is going to help a lot of the people. So you heard it here. Don't go and start like trying to redo your house. Probably better.
Cosmetic, the easy, like they always say, the paint, clean, flooring, that stuff goes a lot further than spending that money on, granite and tile and everything else right now.
And then another tip is, when you're getting ready to sell your house, talk to your realtor. That's why it's so important, the realtors, to do a CMA. And what is a CMA? It's a current market analysis. And basically that realtor, so they're going to pull the sales around the area that are closed that most than likely he's going to use to do the appraisal. Right. And it's crazy. Like one time I got, we got the appraisal. It was under like 20,000. And I called the realtor and I'm like, hey, like it didn't appraise. Like, do you have the comparables? And he was like, no, they just wanted to sell it for that. I'm like, okay, like, no, it does not work like that. So you guys can actually do the homework to do that.
Yes. And from the appraisal district, they have a sketch of your property. There's other services, TaxNet USA, you can subscribe to them. You kind of fill up your cart with money, and it deducts as you go up, but you can buy the sketch from them. And I always encourage people, walk your property and say, okay, this does not look like what they have sketched here. We come out and do sketches for agents all the time for $100. That way they get an accurate square footage. And I saw this a lot at the end of last year, as people relying on Zillow and a lot of these other companies for estimates of their property type. And it's so far off. Yeah. And it just gives an unrealistic expectation of that seller,
of what you're gonna make,
and it's just like, and sometimes it may be really low, but those companies, it's just not even close. They don't, it's just data pulling. They don't know if the house has been updated that it's comparing it to. They're just looking at a bunch of houses in the area. So be very careful with those.
And then one last thing. So tell me how it's different for you. I know I was gonna I circle back, but I remember about this and it's important. So we don't really use an AMC.
Correct.
So a lender is required to, we're not supposed to, call the appraisal or talk to the appraiser, or like, that's like the whole like rule, like the lender shouldn't talk to the appraiser whatsoever about like, hey, Chris, what do you think that so lenders like, probably like, I don't know, like what, 4 or 5 years ago, they changed
At
like
least.
more than that.
Yeah,
Like,
it's been more than that.
they changed how they would do it, and they order the appraisal. So there's these companies that they manage appraisers. So you're part of like a big group, and usually an AMC, like they have like hundreds of appraisers, right?
Correct.
And then what they do is a lender like sends a request, and then it just kind of like goes around and whoever picks it up. So we don't know who the appraiser is going to be. HomeSource Mortgage has a appraisal panel. So we actually manage the whole thing. Why do I like to do that? Is because then I have appraisers that are local. Because, I mean,
Right.
Can you see how it can be like crazy to have a person from Austin or
absolutely.
San Antonio come and try to appraise the property here?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And, there's a lot of, groups have a ton of people, and they're farming them out for $250, $300, and they're just coming through and,
So the AMC has an extra, you don't get the whole fee that you charge with the AMC.
Correct. We typically build it in, but right, they charge anywhere from $10 to $20 per appraisal is roughly about what we have to pay. Yeah.
So what we do at HomeSource Mortgage is, again, we have a panel. So I have like 5-6 appraisers. I still don't know who's going to get it. So we like send a request, and then they ask, we have somebody managing that panel, and then they ask. And then, Chris or any other of the appraisers that I have on my list, and they picked it up. But we paid the whole amount that you charge. And it's just easier. So that's why there was a big difference when back in the day when, appraisals were taking 20, 30 days to come in. Right. We didn't have that much problem because you have local, we work, we have a business relationship that, we have had for a while. So that's a big difference when you're picking a lender.
It is. And it helps to, there's a lot of appraisals that don't get picked up, and they can be, or difficult ones you see, and it helps to have a relationship. Hey, there's a hard one I have coming through. Do you mind really taking a look at it? Because there's so many that were coming through at that time. You're right, and it helps to have. And I don't like the fact that there's so much distance that has to be between the lender, because there's lots of questions that appraisers have, especially when you have to go through certain AMCs. A lot of AMCs are really good, and some are really bad about. Right. Let me get with the client. Let me try to figure it out, because they don't. And then they're not communicating what you really want, because it's just somebody. But
the realtors can actually have access to the appraiser.
Correct.
So the realtors, builders, they can actually talk to the appraiser. The lender is the one that I'm not supposed to. And I mean, it makes sense.
It does.
I mean, I don't want it to get sticky where, come on, give me $10,000 more.
That's right.
Like,
you can't find $10,000 on it. That's right. That's right.
Can you add $10,000? So,
because we're the ones responsible longer than anybody else.
We're on the hook
for 5 years.
Your signature is right there on the bottom. Yeah. So I know that. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I think this is gonna be very helpful. Also, if you're still on the fence of like, oh, I'm gonna sell a house and I don't know how much or whatever, you can even because you do like.
Yes,
outside.
we do a lesser involved appraisal, but it's still everything. We just don't have to do as much write up as we do for the lender.
For the lender,
same value.
How much will you charge for something like that, so that they know?
We do this for about $400.
Okay, so that would be a very good spend, $400, if you're kind of like worried about how much your house is gonna appraise, and then you can get it to the T and get a better idea of what you do, right, and know for sure how much are you gonna and so that's definitely something to think about. But I appreciate you. I don't know who am I gonna have next week. My daughters came last week. Yes. Oh, nice. Gino Montalvo actually. Gino Montalvo interviewed them.
Okay.
And I actually stepped out.
He's got a little bit of history doing that, doesn't he?
Oh, well, he was in the radio, so he's like really good at
he's
interviewing people. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm like just playing here radio. Who do you said that we're having next week? Oh yeah, we're gonna have inspections
Okay.
tomorrow, next week. So I'm doing
That
them
would be
every
good.
week.
Yes.
Yeah, so just kind of like see what's the
I'm gonna watch that
difference.
one.
And then stay tuned because I have a secret coming. So you know how I told Moses yesterday, I was like, I think I'm gonna become a philanthropist. And he's all like, well, I think you need to work more and make more money
Yeah.
to become a philanthropist. And
That's
I'm
right.
like, thank you. So there's some news about a campaign that is gonna come out for the Heart Association.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Great.
So stay tuned
I will.
because
I
there's
will.
gonna be it's 8 weeks. I
Yes.
might hit you up with asking you for money because
Okay.
there's donations for but you know the Heart Association.
Yes.
What happened to Damar or whatever? He's so young.
Mhm.
The football
Yeah.
guy that just like literally just fell on the field.
Yeah, it's amazing
That
how
was
many
crazy.
things go undiagnosed, and you just
Well,
don't
yeah,
know until
and-
something happens.
And that one, my daughter, my youngest one, she was so funny. She was telling me, she's so like, it's something that happens. Like he got hit on the exact
Yeah.
second of the heart beating, and that's what it
Yeah, what it caused.
like it
Yeah.
caused. I'm like, what? And he's like, oh mom, like it had to be like super exact for that to happen. So it's crazy. So it's a great cause, and I'm not allowed to share anything until next Friday, but just
I'll tune in
I
and
will.
see that.
Yeah, here listen to the podcast. Thank you guys.